rationale for showing you Jaws boils down to a couple of different factors. One, obviously, is that the film Jaws remains to this day a fantastic movie. If you haven't seen it, be warned, there's spoilers ahead. Okay, so I mean, if you want to go now and watch it and then come back, we'll wait. We're not actually going to wait. We're just going to press on. It's their loss on both scores. Of course, the movie with Roy Scheider, Richard Dreyfuss, Robert Shaw. Yeah, Robert Shaw. Was and still remains a great flick. It's a horror. It's a thriller. You know what? It's a lot of things. It's better than it should have been for a lot of films at its time. That idea of suspense, unseen danger, dread and threat, but with drama and tension and a whole sort of thriller aspect tied in there as well. It has a lot going on. How then does something like that become a board game? More to the point, how does something like that become a family board game? Because this is ages 12 and up. Well, times have changed, and Jaws' own sort of classification has changed as well. But the board game, whilst it does have the theme of sharks eating people, it's not just about that. Actually, it's pretty largely about that. It would sell itself short if it really didn't focus on the fact that there's a shark eating people. Beyond that, it really wouldn't be Jaws, okay? So, if you're happy with that principle, we can proceed. If we're not happy with that principle, I'm going to proceed and you can leave, like those other ones earlier on. We'll wait for you to go. Let the door close. Okay, so we can press on with the people who kind of get Jaws and are on board with that, okay? The other reason that we wanted to throw this one on the table is that it's good value. It's like 26 quid for a small compact bijou game that, beneath the surface, is bigger than it appears. Because equally for a £26 game, you have certain expectations of what you're going to get, and what you get with Jaws is 2 games. Act 1 and Act 2, but they can be played separately. Neither one is huge, but together you're probably looking in and around about an hour's gameplay of a session. Now, with it being Ravensburger, with it being a license from a Steven Spielberg property, one can expect a little bit of quality inside the box for a start, and one will not be disappointed by the little bit of quality. But let's focus on what's important first. We did mention early on here the idea that this is a family board game. Ages 12 and up, 2 to 4 players. As a family board game, we want approachable, accessible rules. And hello, we've got approachable, accessible rules. Well laid out, well thought out. But they do push the boundaries. Now, I'm not talking to the hardened board gamers here, okay? I'm talking to the people who buy most of their games maybe in like Waterstones or off the supermarket shelf, and to whom board games still revolve around chess, Chinese checkers, Cluedo, Monopoly. So, whoa, horsey, and let's carry on with that in mind too. This is graspable. It's fairly well laid out. Everything is coherent. It makes sense. Actually, first and foremost, you read through the introductory page and lo and behold, watch the video of how to play. They actually tell you to stop and go and watch a video and then come back to the rulebook, because after the little video, it'll all make sense. Honestly, it'll all make sense. Mostly. But what you get is a talk through everything, how to set up, an overview of how the game goes, and then what to do in each phase, with little pull-out boxes that clarify all of these things for you. When they talk about a thing, they give you an example, they show you what they mean, they show you how it works. It's done as plain and simply as I think is reasonably manageable. Continues through the phases, and there is a quirk here because one of the players is playing the shark And what the shark does is secretive. So, point of order, our advice is whoever has bought the game, whoever has first read the rules, really probably wants to be the person to play the shark for the first couple of games until everyone in your family or everyone in your group has got a handle of what's going on, and then they can take a turn at playing the shark as well. The shark is controlled by secret movement. You know what the movement is, you write it down, and the writing it down is done in secret so that the other players know you're not a big cheat. And boom, that's it. It's like 6 pages. That's Act 1. That's it over. No, it's not. Then there's Act 2. The whole separate game within a game. And it's much the same thing. You get told how to set up, overview of what's going on, how the shark works in this one, how the heroes work in this one, and boom. And no, it's not a repeat of Act 1. There are similarities, but there's big, big differences. It is a different game, not just a different portion of the same game. And there you go. You're at the end of it. You've read it all. You're ready to play. You've watched your video, and it's all been fairly good and straightforward. There is a little bit of advice for, as we said at the very start of this, playing either part of the game standalone and what they've encountered as their frequently asked questions. The kind of things where you've read through, you go, but hang on a minute, what if? Yep, it's there. Pretty much. Okay? So let's look at components and what you're getting inside your box. Well, obviously, as you might imagine, there's a board. Ta-da! Side 1, Act 1, Amity Island. Okay? Stylized from the film. It's probably a little bit bigger because it's not real. It was made up. Okay? So you're getting a look at what the island was supposed to look like. It's divided into segments, and those segments are primarily to deal with the shark player moving the shark. So they're writing down on their little pad whatever zone they're in. So when the players interact with the board and declare they're making an attack on the shark then has to declare whether it's in that zone or not. And if it's not, it just has to say, no, I'm not in that zone. Unlucky, punk. We have the 2 docks. This is where Quint and Hooper are going to have their boats, the fishing boat and the little research boat. They both do different things as well. There's places to put down barrels. Barrels can be bought at the shop, dropped off at the docks. The boats can lift the barrels, and it's Quint's boat that is used to fire those barrels into the water, trying to catch onto the shark, because the goal here is to get 2 barrels latched onto the shark, which draws it up to the surface so that they have a chance of being able to catch and beat it, as per the film. However, event cards are going to constantly be having little things happen. They're also going to be constantly putting swimmers out onto the beaches. And the cards will tell you which beach, how many swimmers, and there's little swimmer tokens that you'll put out. Both of your boats are capable of collecting swimmers, and that considers them rescued. There will, of course, be Brody, the sheriff. Now, Brody is running about on the land. Now you think, well, what use is he to us if we're trying to deal with a shark? Well, pretty much like in the film. He's keeping an eye out for the shark, he's trying to keep the beaches safe, he's trying to deal with the mayor, and he is supplying them with barrels, because obviously they're on the boat. How do they get the barrels? Brody can pick up the barrels at the shop, he can drop them off at the docks. Either boat can lift them, and Hooper's boat can pass them to Quint's boat. Okay? He can go to the mayor's office to declare that he's shutting a beach, and he gets a little sign for that, and whichever beach he declares is shut for a round. But obviously the mayor's office, like in the film, is constantly wanting these beaches open, so it only closes up for a 1 round. And he can use his binoculars at any of the beaches to actually look out and sort of see if he can spot the shark. Hooper has a shark detector. It's basically like an underwater radar, a sonar sort of thing. He can throw that into the water, and if the shark is in that space or an adjacent space, the player has to declare that it's in that space or it's adjacent. It's a good way of narrowing it down. The barrels that Quint can shoot. He can shoot into his space or into any adjacent space. And if the shark there has to accept and take the token and put it on the shark card. Okay. Working together and combining and planning your actions, you can try to maximize figuring out where the shark is, because the shark obviously is out to eat swimmers. So by looking at where swimmers are being consumed, how far apart these actions are taking place, they are supposed to be able to deduce what the shark's actions have been, and therefore where the likely place is that the shark's going to move to next. Because the shark just doesn't have free movement. It's got set movement, but it's got a few special actions that it can play to confuse things. Again, a bit like the film. In some respects, it behaves just like they think it should, and then every so often, it's able to surprise them with a maneuver that they didn't see coming. Okay? And that is how the suspense and sort of drama is built into this portion of the board game. Now, just so that you can see some of the related pieces to what we're talking about here, and there is a whole host of them, we have our barrel tokens. As I say, these get stacked up at the shops and can be moved to the docks. We have the shark action cards, of which you can only find 3 there at the minute. They've just kind of all gone slidey about in the box. So we'll come to those when I've managed to put my hand on the last of them. But in the meantime, we'll take a little bit of a look at the character cards. So we have Brody, we have Hooper, and we have Quint. And we'll look at each one of these. They are largely the same, but there's little differences. So, Brody first. And if we look at Brody, you can see that in Act 1 he has the ability to take up to 4 actions in a turn. He can move a space, rescue a swimmer by being at the beach, pick up a barrel from the shop, drop a barrel at the dock, use the binoculars once per round at one of the 4 beach spaces to see if he can spot the shark, and close a beach once per round at the mayor's office or the Amity Police Department. So you can see that if we had Brody here at the shop, for 1 action, Brody can pick up a barrel. For 2, 3, he can move to the dock section. And for 4, he can place down a barrel at the docks. And that would be Brody's 4 actions in that particular turn, done and dusted. Hooper then has his boat. And we've got a little beeple for him as well. So he can actually go on his boat. There we go. Hooper also has the possibility to take up to 4 actions. He can move up to 2 spaces. He can rescue 1 swimmer. He can pick up any or all barrels from the dock or from the water. He can give all the barrels to Quint, and he can use the fish finder once per round. Now, what they mean by that is that, for example, if over here on East Beach we had a couple of swimmers, Hooper could lift this barrel, put it onto his boat, 1 action. Second action, moves over into East Beach. Third action, he can rescue a swimmer. Fourth action, he could rescue another swimmer. That's his 4 actions done for that turn. Equally, if this was the situation and one of the barrels had been previously fired over here, and we were sort of between phases where there wasn't one handy to get, he could go 1, 2 moves to here for 1 action, lift the barrel, second action, third action, move again, and fourth action, he could rescue 1 of the swimmers, just by way of example. Quint also has his boat. Quint's boat is the big old fishing boat. And we have the Quint pawn as well, who can go in his boat. Quint's actions, again, he can take up to 4. He can move 1 space at a time. He can rescue 1 swimmer if he chooses to. He can pick up any or all barrels, again, from the dock or from the water that he's in. And he can launch a barrel once per round. So he can launch the barrel into the space that he's in if he has reason to, or into any adjacent space. And that's Quint. Now, our friend the shark works slightly differently. The shark gets a bit more gear to have to police for a start, because the shark player has to deal with the shark tracker, shark card, and 4 special action tokens. Okay, so we'll look at each of these elements in turn just for clarity. The shark character card. Act 1, possible actions, take up to 3. Move 1 space, eat 1 swimmer. So it can do move twice, eat a swimmer, move once, eat 2 swimmers. Or it can elect to play 1 of its 4 special actions. Now, the reason they've all got the same symbol at the back is once they're played, they get set down, because your opponents are allowed at the start of the game, before it all starts, to read each of these. They are allowed to know the unusual behaviours that the shark is capable of committing, but not which one it has committed. That's up to them to deduce through gameplay. So they get to read these. The shark player will then keep them in hand, and if at any stage as one of their actions they decide to play one of them, they just simply put it down and do the action as one of their 3 actions. Okay. The choices for this one are: once this round, the shark may move up to 3 spaces with 1 move action. The shark is invisible to Hooper's fish finder and Brody's binoculars. The shark does not trigger any motion sensors this round. For 1 action, the shark may eat all the swimmers at the beach. So by clever use of these special actions combined with its normal actions, the shark player ideally is trying to confuse and obfuscate its movement from the other players. And it's important then they work together to try and maximise their likelihood of apprehending the shark. So the barrels all have motion sensors, so even though the barrel is in the water and hasn't latched onto the shark, it has a motion sensor. So if the shark passes through that zone, it will activate it. The players will be notified, and the shark player has to identify that it has activated a motion tracker. They don't necessarily know from which direction that action was caused. They simply know that there was a ping wherever that barrel happened to be. Keeping the shark player honest is the shark tracker. And the shark tracker is just very simply a little pad. It shows a map of the island with all the named locations and numbers. So that the shark player writes down their starting position, and then at the start of its turn will write down where it's planning to move that turn. That way, if at any point at the end of the game, whatever, people say, oh, we think you were a bit cheaty or whatever, that has to be able to be revealed to show that there is an accurate record, because all of the shark's actions should tally up. You can check back to see that they have been honest about what they've said they've done. The last important part of this phase is the shark card itself on this side and here. Here we can see that there is a space to locate the 2 barrels. And once the 2 barrels are on the shark, that's Act 1 over. The players have won. The alternative, of course, is that the shark gets to eat 9 or more people, in which case the shark has won. There's a consequence for this too. As the shark eats more people, it unlocks a greater number of abilities for Act 2, and it also reduces the number of gear cards that the player characters will have access to in round 2. But that, in a nutshell, is Act 1. And hey, doesn't it feel like a game already? It's like, oh, I've played that and I'm tired now, let's take a break. Nothing wrong with that. You can leave it at that, that's your night done, move on to something else. Or, of course, filled with excitement, fueled by the drama and events of Act 1, you can proceed to Act 2. What's Act 2? There's nothing much more in the box other than a few cards. Act 2 is on the back. Dun, dun, dun. It's like a double feature. Act 2, like the movie, takes place on the boat, on the Orca. And to make this magic happen, you get a boat. And whilst there was 2 boats in Act 1, this is a bigger boat in Act 2. In Act 2, you're going to need your pawns. And this simply represents our 3 characters as they were being on the boat. Okay. Now, remember we talked about gear. So everyone has some gear, but there's other gear as well. So we've got Hooper gear, Brody gear, and Quint gear. And then we have crew gear. And we're going to have shark abilities. We go back to our character cards, but this time we'll be using the reverse of them as well. And this time the card is telling you the sequence of play for Act 2, and it's recording the wounds that the characters can endure before the shark has eaten them and they've got nothing left. They are gone. Bye bye. Swim away, big fishy. The procedure for all the players is the exact same. This time their character doesn't provide different options for them. Everyone will follow the same sequence of play. However, the little variations come in their basic equipment and what it can do for them. So in this case, Hooper gets the hammer and the rifle. Brody gets the pistol and the baseball bat. And Quint gets the machete and the flare. Now, depending on how well they've done in Act 1, they will have the opportunity to also have some crew gear cards, extra stuff that they've managed to get their hands on for going into this fight. And this is a range of stuff. We've got the tranquilizer, loads of ammunition, chum bait, gas canister, shark cage, fishing pole, fishing net, and the harpoon gun, and a hook, and another pistol. So repeats of some cards to keep topping up the weapons, and a few additional ones. But if the shark's done really well, they won't be getting their hands on too many of these, and they are dished out to whichever player they deem fit. This time round, the shark will be still controlled by the shark player, but will be working from a number of resurface cards. This is where the players get their stabbing chance at trying to predict what the shark is going to do. So every turn, 3 resurface cards will be dealt into these spaces. Okay? So they can look at this, and it corresponds to the sections of the boat, and try to make a prediction as to where they think the shark will attack. So they know by looking at these that it could attack here, it could attack here, or it could attack here. Do they focus all their action in one zone and hope for the best? Do they try to sort of work the averages because they know they can attack adjacent spaces So if they kind of bunch up a bit, does that work, but spread the load a little bit? They've got to guess what they do. The shark player, meanwhile, has to make their choice before the players even decide that. The shark player will have a number of these tokens, and they correspond to the A position, the B position, or the C position. They'll pick one from their set and essentially set it in front of them, but not declare it. The players will decide where they're going to go based on what they're doing, and they can kind of put down their token, whether they're going to be going for section B, section C, section A, whatever they want to do, so that can help keep them honest about where they're declaring their attack. And then the attack is revealed. And normally what you do is you put it in the position where the attack's actually happening once that point's been reached. And then the players do their attack, try to damage the shark. They either succeed or fail, of course, and the shark has its wounds to record this time with a little slider as well. Once the attack's over, the shark attacks, and it attacks the ship and the players. And this is where it kind of gets dramatic and exciting and fun, because a successful attack on the part of the shark damages the boat. And we get to see that damage being inflicted as the game progresses. Just like in the film, you can literally munch your way through the boat. And of course, eventually, sections of the boat can potentially be gone completely. And indeed, the rules allow for the fact that players can end up in the water as a result of that, and risk an additional attack by the shark in the hope that they can get themselves out of the water and back onto the boat. This round is won by the destruction of the crew, the orca, or the shark. It's that straightforward. As with any game, your first go at it is going to be your slowest one. Your second go, it'll start to fall really into place for you. You'll start to get the synergy of the different aspects of it. And I would say by your third go, you'll have it down pat. And probably by your third go, you'll be ready to let somebody else have a go at being the shark as well. In a two-player game, one person's the shark, one person is all of the cast. In a three-player game, one person's the shark, the other two represent the three players. You will always use the full team. Regardless of the number of human players you've got, you will always use all the pieces. You can divvy out if you're playing a three-player game and you've got that sort of spare character. You know, they just work the spare character between them, except for the shark player. Obviously, they don't get us. Oh, I think you should maybe go to the sheriff's office and shut the North Beach. Yeah, North Beach would be wise. No, it doesn't work that way. Don't tell the shark player what you're doing ahead of time. And you get that little sort of thrill of kind of being a bit sort of huddled and secretive about what you're doing, how you're going to try and beat it. The shark player, of course, can't react each round because they have to do their action, write down their planned move or whatever, select a move. Then you're free to talk, and you can talk as much as you want, and you can maybe try and judge by whether they're sort of hiding their face, looking white a little bit, like a shark, or if they're gibbering and laughing to themselves because you're being complete buffoons. But there we go. That's pretty much it. There is, actually, I keep putting this token down, you can, of course, produce the shark meeple thing every time the shark actually does surface. Go, I'm here! Munch, 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 munch. I got you, Brody. Sorry. Childish, I know. I like to have fun. But there we go, and it's got its bespoke dice in there as well for doing all the damage, and there's a boatload of tokens. We've got our little sign, we didn't show you it earlier on, for how to close the beach and things like that there. We've got little swimmers, and we've got people in yachts and jet skis and all sorts of things like that there, and yeah, it's all good. But it's a nice little fun game. Oh, there's even a diver. It's the view from under the water of somebody swimming, from the shark's eye view. There we go, folks. That is, in a nutshell, Jaws. Hopefully that has given you an idea of what the gameplay is about, a bit of an idea of the quality of the components that are in there as well, and whether this one is for you or not. Decide for yourself. Let us know in the comments. If you've enjoyed it, give it a like. Give us a wee subscribe if you haven't already. It's greatly appreciated. It means a lot to us. And let us know if you've dealt with Jaws, what you thought of it. And the movie? Sure, why not? Jaws fans, feel free to chip in. Is this the first time you found out that there's a board game about it? You should pick it up. It is totally cool merc to have for your favourite film, if that's the case. As always, thanks for watching, and it's been a pleasure. Catch you later. Bye-bye.